Team ZAZA, what up? Hey, we're going to get into a little bit of story time today. One thing we know for sure, breeding, it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of book knowledge and research, and it takes some hard work. So I really wanted to let you guys into my world and let you know how I started as a breeder. Let's get into it. Get it!
Like, comment, share, subscribe, you heard me?
Yeah, you know it.
Turn up the leaf blower and the lawnmower. Harry, he ain't smoke the sour. Should've been a hippie, should've been a shower. Bread with no dread, black cop, who ya?
Another thing, don't forget to join the Discord.
Hey, before we get into it, my partners, my sponsors over at AC Infinity, they blessed us again. Somebody's about to win a 3x3 advanced grow smart tent setup. I'm talking about everything, the lights, the tents, the fans, the controllers, everything from top to bottom besides the beams, and I'm gonna make sure you got that. So on June 16th, make sure you join the live, because we're gonna announce it live. The beautiful thing about this, we did it a little bit different. It's not the typical giveaway where, you know, the duck race or the spin the wheel is determining the winner, because what happens is many times somebody who really doesn't need it ends up winning. So with this, in order to enter, all you need to do is follow the YouTube, subscribe, make sure you're notified, right? You set your notification bell. But most importantly, drop a comment on the most recent video or my AC Infinity promotional video, and let us know why you need that tent, why you need that entire setup. And on the 16th, we'll go live, we'll have some fun, and then me and Team ZAZA, me and my team will go back to the office and we'll choose a winner based on the information that we see. So I'm excited. I hope everybody who's joining, somebody who's deserving of it, is gonna win a nice setup, man. So shout out to AC Infinity. Make sure you join and visit acinfinity.com. Hey, look, so let's get right into it. So my breeding journey really started young, kind of fresh out of high school. I was traveling the United States as a salesman and as a trainer. So I trained for a long time. That was my thing. You know, that was my professional background, a sales trainer. So while I was on the road, I'm going door to door, and one day, this lady gives me, you know, she got all these rabbits, and she's like, oh, you know, the rabbits, they have babies, and I got so many, can you want to take some? So I'm like, you know, and we was living on the road at the time, so I'm like, all right, cool. You know, I always thought that rabbits wasn't as easy to have babies. You know, they don't go in heat like a dog would, or. But anyway, I took the 2 rabbits home, and boy and a girl, it was actually the same rat. It was the same rabbits that had all the babies. So, you know, it was pretty much a guarantee that they was gonna breed, and that was my start with the rabbits. And I learned a little bit. It wasn't really. I wasn't there long. You know, I wasn't there long. I jumped right from there. I was messing with rabbits for about a year or so, and then I jumped straight into fish because it was just way less complicated. Went through a couple generations and realized that these rabbits was bad. Behavior-wise, I just couldn't deal with it no more. It was just too much. And like I said, I wasn't about to have mice in the crib, so that wasn't an option. And so I went into fish. Fish tank was sleek. I did some research, and I found a particular breed of fish that caught my attention. It was the convict cichlid. And the convict cichlid was very easy to reproduce. And you know, you can keep them in a tank. You can have the tank looking fly, you know. So that was, I'm like, cool, that's it for me. So, you know, after a couple years of messing around with rabbits and, you know, just researching and learning, I jumped into a fish, got a really nice tank, you know, really got into the whole fish world. And one thing about convicts, man, and they're like these little, they small, you know, they small, but they got like almost like a little jail suit style. You know, that's what they, that's what it looks like. It's like stripes, like a jail suit. So, you know, you can distinctly identify the female by like a red, she has like a red circle on her belly, you know, so, you know, that's the female. So if you were to take a female and a male and put them in a tank, 10 times out of 10, you can end up with babies, right? And they have babies, but one thing about them is if you got anything else in the tank, and it's funny because at the time, like I said, I was dealing with other fish as well. I was learning other fish. So I had other fish, mainly like Amazon, aggressive, big fish, Oscars and Red Devils and Green Terror, Peacock Bass. I had an arowana. I had two really large tanks. One was like a 250 gallon, one was like a 175, and then I had a small breeding tank. And at the time, the convicts, they was in the tank with the big fish. They kind of, they wasn't really being bothered. But once they bred, man, they got so aggressive. I mean, these things was like this big. I mean, I had fish in there that was huge. These little fish, look up a comic sickly. They got so aggressive that they would have all my fish, all my big, aggressive, predatorial fish in the corner. Because once they had those babies, they laid those eggs. They laid eggs. Some fish have live babies. That's another thing. Fish is different. Some fish have live babies where the babies just pop right out. And then some fish have eggs. And this particular breed was egg-laying breed. And they would lay them eggs, and they would lay them in like decoration in the tank. Like it'd be a little house, a fish house, or, something like that. And they would go in there and hide, and they would lay the eggs. And when she laid those eggs, the male would go over there and fan him. He would like kind of just fan him, and that's how he's kind of, fertilizing them. And she would just attack anything, bro. She would attack anything that came near the tank. No cap. It was, so look that up. Look up convict cichlids. I'm telling you, they really dope fish, man. But all right, so that was how I started, right? That was like 17, 18. We was messing around. I was messing around a little bit. And then eventually I left the road, right? I got off the road at about 21. I got off the road. And I was working a regular job, doing regular stuff. And eventually I wanted to get into the dog world. So I started noticing a trend within the dog world at around this time. And it was a trend of the original game dog had such a bad reputation, right? For fighting and blah, 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 and all of this stuff, right? And of course, it was humans that caused this bad reputation, but that's another story. Anyway, I didn't want to breed pit bulls because of the reputation, and it just wasn't mainstream enough for me to want to get into that. But at the time, a guy named Dave Sandell in Virginia, and around the same time on the other side, a guy named Juan Gotti on the West Coast, Cali, they were taking these game dogs and selectively breeding them and line breeding them and inbreeding them, and throughout the selection process over the years, they changed these dogs completely, personality-wise, physical structure, look, temperament, everything about these game dogs who had one intent, right? Their only intent was to fight and the dog on the other end, or any small animal, or it was game. The only thing they were bred for was game. They were game. And now these dogs were being bred for different purposes, more like show purposes. So that's what caught my attention. So I did my research. And I'm going to always tell my upcoming breeders, do your research, learn this, learn, right? And that's what I did. I hit the books. I hit every resource available because I wanted to learn to breed dogs. And even though I messed around with fish and rabbits and I understood the selection process and I understood stepping into the dog world really opened up. It really opened everything up for me. It really showed me how advanced people were when it came to, people out here were really scientists when it came to this breeding thing. And it made sense how Dave Sandell and Juan Gotti were able to take a breed of dog and single-handedly transform it into what is now a completely different breed. And they did that through the selection process. It was fascinating to me. It was brilliant. I was impressed. I was like, man. And at the same time, I wanted to learn that game and I wanted to be a part of that game. And I did. I did my research. I hit my books running. And the way my research started was back in the day. I start with the history. I start with the very history, man. I started with all the game dogs. You understand? It's all about pedigree and family tree, right? So if I know that these guys are working to create this animal of today, that's a show dog, that's all about looks, that's all about good temperament and being able to hang around other dogs. If they were able to do that and achieve that through selective breeding, I needed to go back into history and see where it started. So I had to look up the Colby dogs and the old game dog fighter guys who was breeding these things hundreds of years ago. And I did that. And I found all the books and I found all the old articles and I found all of those guys who started this game. And then that really helped me to understand how to read a pedigree. I understood how to read a family tree, 3 generation, 5 generation, 7 generation, 10 generation. You understand? I learned how to read the pedigree. So now I could take the dogs from today, and that's what I would do. I would take the dogs, a particular dog, and then I would trace the lineage. I will follow it all the way back until I can go to the history of where these pictures were now black and white, and these same dogs are today that were being created by these guys who weren't scientists. They were just guys like me and you. And they were doing the work of scientists, advanced breeding, and getting results and changing the game as we know it. I mean, they literally changed an entire breed to where now, and I'll tell you how it started. It started off with temperament. That was the first thing, right? They had to remove the dog fight out of them. They had to make it possible for them to not every dog they seen. Matter of fact, do the total opposite and be quite calm and docile around other dogs. So that was the first trait they had to stabilize, right? They had to remove the aggression, the animal aggression, and stabilize that calm peacefulness in them. And they did that. And eventually they stabilized color. So blue became a big thing, right? You start seeing all these blue dogs, pit bulls in general, right? And then after they stabilized the blue, then it became like muscle. Then they started stabilizing these big heads and these big muscles, right? And through years and years and years, they were able to do that. They were able to stabilize that. The original game dog, the original pit bull was like 35, 40 pounds. They were small, really athletic. It was all about athleticism, drive. They were like super dogs, right? Really small packages though. And over the course of 20 years through selective breeding, it completely changed the entire conformation of the dog, the entire breed standard, phenotype of the dog, right? So now the dogs are running around 100 plus pounds, some of them huge mastiffs, some of them tiny little dogs to the floor with big muscles and disformed bodies and weird heads and, all of these crazy colors that, and it's all through, selective breeding, man. Eventually, all the dogs, majority of of the pit bulls that you've seen were now considered American bullies, right? They look different, they act different. They was able to fill up entire venues with hundreds of dogs and no fights. So yeah, they accomplished a lot in a short amount of time, and I was super impressed. And that's what drove me to the game. And I learned the game, and I before I ever even tried to get into breeding, man, I made sure I just hit the books. I hit the books real hard for like the first couple years. I didn't because now you're dealing with life, dealing with life. So you got to be responsible. It's not like a plant. Where these are actually lives you're dealing with. So we got real good at it, man. We got real good. I studied. I was a student of the game. I studied with the masters. I hung around the best. I did the 3 L's: look, listen, and learn, man. I was already a leader because of my professional background with training. So I understood off top, in order to be a good leader, you had to be a good listener. You had to be a good follower. So that's one of my strong points when it comes to me wanting to teach myself something or wanting to learn something. I'm quick to humble myself and do the 3 L's because for me, it's all about collecting that knowledge and eventually acquiring wisdom, right? So let's not get off track. Some years fast forward through the game, we eventually start messing with dogs, man. We messing with bullies. I'm messing with Rottweilers. I'm breeding dogs, and then I'm learning the game as I do it, but the business side of things is not really hitting. You understand me? And that was cool because it was such a slow process. The same way we got pollen chuckers, they got backyard breeders, right? But it's worse in that case because now you're dealing with puppy mills. Now you're dealing with all type of issues that end up getting pushed off to somebody. It's not just a herm or, something like that. This is actually, issues that can be a problem for another dog owner if they end up getting a dog with bad blood or a genetic trait that might be undesirable. Not to get off track. So we was breeding dogs. We was Good News Kennels. Good News Kennels. Michael Vick recently got in trouble. He specifically, I remember his thing was Bad News Kennels, and I was like, we're gonna play on that, and I'm saying we, but it was just me, and eventually I took on a partner. But I was like, man, we're gonna be Good News Kennels, man. So that's what I did. I started Good News Kennels, and it was really no business though. It was really me just working the line and trying to improve or just stabilize traits within my own inbred line. And I realized the time that it was gonna take, that my work was really just all hands-on education and networking. And one thing about dogs, when you're on an inbred line and you looking to stabilize traits, what's important in the dog world is we try to repeat certain dogs within the pedigree several times, right? In order to pull desirable traits from that particular animal. So it could be a great-grandfather, right? The great-grandfather might show up in the 6th generation or 7th generation pedigree 8 times. Or whoever the dog is, that dog may show up several times within this 3 generation, 5 generation, whatever, 10 generation pedigree. That was the goal, right? We want to take a dog that we know had the best. See, one thing too, you got to understand with animals, it's not always about the traits that they possess. Like how we so focused, on that in plants is like, oh, what traits does they possess, right? It's more so in the animal world about just as much about what they can throw, right? What a female can throw, meaning we can reproduce that particular dog several times within the pedigree, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that the current mother will have those same traits as the dog that we trying to repeat. But that same mother may be able to throw a litter of puppies, and within that litter we might find that dog that we keep trying to repeat, or traits from that dog, the desirable traits that we're looking for. Just as a sidebar, right? But one thing about dog breeding as well, it's real hit or miss. So that's why heterozygosity and hybrid vigor is so important, and we focus so much on hybrid vigor because within heterosis, you can achieve hybrid vigor, and you can use advanced back crossing methods to stabilize that hybrid vigor without going through this inbred process of inbreeding. And that's the ultimate goal, right? But a lot of times it doesn't work. It's just hit or miss. So we have to do repeat breedings where you have to keep repeating that same mother and father because you just didn't find the puppy that you're looking for. It's just very random. You're only dealing with 8 puppies. Oh, the dog had 5 puppies. You get lucky if she have 10, but most case 7, 8. So to get that magical puppy that you're looking for to achieve that hybrid vigor, it's really hit or miss. So you have to know when you want to play that heterosis game, and then so you can hopefully stabilize something really immaculate to start with, and then eventually you won't have to do so much inbreeding in the beginning versus using it to stabilize toward the end. But that's neither here nor there. So fast forward. Now we breeders, we dog breeders, da-da-da. One thing that was different from me, these guys that I was learning from, they was masters, man. They knew they stuff hands-on through the experience. They just knew how to do it. They knew how to selective breed. But they wasn't up on the language. You understand? They wasn't up on the language. And in my mind, I'm learning all of this without going to college, without going to school. I'm teaching myself, right? I'm learning from these guys, and they don't have the language. But to me, it was very important to understand the language and put the language together and if I was ever in a situation where I was speaking with a scientist or a botanist or a breeder or whatever, geneticist, I wanted to be able to have a conversation with them, not just try and talk, right? So that was the thing that separated me from most of the people I was learning from. So once I started to put the language together with the hands-on experience, I started to separate myself as, a little bit better than my peers. So like anything else I do when I'm wanting to learn, I went back to the beginning, the alpha, the very essence of it all. And that was Mendel with his law of inheritance, the law of segregation, basically saying that alleles will separate for each parent, the law of independent assortment. You need to know the differences, man. And that's why I was not to be taken lightly, man. I really wanted it, and I always feel like my job is to want it more than anybody around me. At this point, it's been about 10 years I've been breeding, right? At this point, I want to get into something a little more easy. I want to get into something that's not so hit or miss. And not have to take 20 years to do it, right? So I wanted to. I started researching plants, our plant in particular, right? I started researching our plant, and I was always a connoisseur of the plant, right? So, on a recreational tip though. So, as I'm researching, I'm like, this is easy. if I'm just imagining, like, man, if this was dogs, bro, man, if I could have a program like this with my dogs, bro, I would be, man. And that's how I kept saying it. I kept saying, like, if I could do this, and then I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just do that? And before I did that, though, I said, you know what? Because that was a little bit of underground. You see what I'm saying? If you've never been in that community, then so ultimately off rip, let me mess with vegetables because we know Mendel started his experiments in the isolation process with peas, garden peas. And that's what I did, man. I started breeding vegetables in the garden. I grew a garden right outside, right? Never grew plants before, never grew house plants, never cared about none of that. And I grew the garden, and it was pretty easy. Then I bred some collard greens, I bred kale, and I just wanted to mess around with plant pollen. So that was really my objective. So it wasn't like I was gonna continue to just line breed these vegetables. I did tomatoes, collard greens, and what's all at the same time. And boom, that was it. And that little one summer was it. And from there, I said, cool. Now, all I need to do is find a grower. At this point, as advanced as I am with the science of breeding, I still didn't realize and put two and two together. People was doing it in their house. So I'm like, let me find me a grower. So, I'm doing my research. Meet somebody, we chop it up. Meet somebody on Xbox one day. We on Xbox. Homeboy from Denver. I'm still cool with boy to this day. I see him every once in a while. Instagram, Xbox. See what up. Shout out to bro though. And he was like, yeah, I'm a grower, da-da-da. I'm a grower in Denver, da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, that's what I need. Listen, I'm looking for a grower that I can take under my wing, teach him this breeding, and then we can create a strain. We can create a strain. We can create multiple strains. If my assumptions are correct, we might be able to actually create multiple lines. Because from the number of offspring that you'll be working with, it's no more hit or miss. It's no more hit or miss. It's no more repeat breedings, right? Every single time you'll be able to hit because of the number of offspring you got to work with, the size of the gene pool that you got to work with. So he talk a good game. Oh yeah, come on down, man. Yo, da da da, blah blah blah. So I'm like, say no more. Now this is why I had Busy with me, my little brother Busy. Love him to death. He'll tell you. That's where the journey started. We started going to Denver. Denver had just became newly recreational. Boom, we started going to Denver. Went out there to meet old boy. Oh, I'm working. All right, my bad. I miss you. Da da da. We go back home. We grab a whole bunch of stuff from the dispensary so we don't waste the trip. Boom, go back home. Back on my mission. Looking for a grower. Looking for a grower. Looking for a grower. I wasn't on Instagram with you see what I'm saying? I wasn't on Instagram, wasn't nothing. I go back, travel again. I'm like, boom, well, maybe we should go back and just try to find somebody out there. At this point, I was just trying to avoid growing, right? I'm a real breeder. Like, I'm a breeder at heart, and my job is to preserve, enhance, stabilize, genetics, make them better for the future, create stabilized, uniform strains for people to have good quality genetics. That's whether it's animal, plant, no matter what, right? So that's always my objective. So ultimately I was really just set out to find a grower to grow it for me and to take him under the wing and really train him so that we could get some strains out. but that wasn't seeming to work, man. I went, me and Bi, we went back several times. I went back several times by myself. It just wasn't happening. I just wasn't able to find growth. It wasn't. It didn't seem like it was just a lot of people growing that or I just wasn't looking in the right places. But either way, then, and this is gonna be a side bit of information or advice, and you know, one thing I learned on this journey is me and my brother Goldbeard Genetics, we talk about it all the time, man, and it's become a thing for us. And it's you don't got to be perfect, you just got to get it done. And I was really just many times, man, I'm always so wrapped up in trying to be perfect, whether it's my editing, whether it's my, I'm always trying to hire somebody to do it or get somebody to do it or collaborate with somebody, so that they can do this part and I'll do this part. But ultimately, no matter what, when you put your mind to something, if you really want it done, man, you'll just get it done. And that's kind of what, the last time I went, had the date and my flight messed up. So with that, it messed up some mail issues. It created some mail issues. And that was just a terrible trip. And at that point, I was like, I'm never coming back. I'm done with it. It's a dub. So I went back home and I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and mess around with some seeds, man. Let me go ahead and go find me some seeds. And I did my research. And this was probably, at this point, around 6 years ago. And at the time when I was researching, I was looking for seeds, and I found the only, just by doing my research, one place in particular came up several times, and that was ILGM. And I was like, I guess. And when I found them, it instantly, because the where I come from, everything is pedigree. Everything is so. When I finally found my specimen or my product, I immediately wanted to backtrack into the history and the family tree. And ILGM didn't have those capabilities, right? So I ended up finding Seed Finder. And Seed Finder which was owned by Seedsman, they had a pedigree list. And with that, I used that information to find different resources and lineage. I was just looking through the trees, man, and the trees was connected to different breeders. So after doing my research for several months, I decided on doing it myself. And I went and I decided on creating Boondocks Glue as my first autoflower. I wanted something that would be geared towards the newer grower, something that would give them confidence, because I knew off top I was coming with a set of skills that was real advanced, and this was really something I could do with my eyes closed when it came to the work of selective breeding in this area. So off top, I was several steps ahead of the game, so I was excited. And we jumped right into it. And everything ran smooth. I was able to play around with Punnett Square. All the same stuff that I would do in the dog game was pretty much applicable and the same ideologies and concepts and mechanics were all pretty much the same, besides a few different things. So I hit the ground running, man, and I found, I had already found the Instagram community, but I decided to go into there. And when I went there, I didn't have no. I really never planned to even go on Instagram. And this is the funny thing, because, but when I was like, oh, this is where all the growers are, right? So when I first seen Instagram, I just thought it was a whole bunch of growers. I'm like, oh, this is where all the growers are. So cool. I'm gonna create something fire, and I'm gonna give it to them so they could have something fire, put my name on it, put my stamp on it, you know, brand it out. I come in with a brand, I come in, and that's what I did, man. And I came crazy, and I hit the community crazy with a lot of energy, and we created Team ZAZA. They all started as students, but eventually they all became family, and we a real tight knit group. And while I'm in this community, so as I'm just kind of just breezing around, and my initial thing was just branding. It wasn't trying to sell nothing. It was just let me brand myself. Let me make a name. Let me introduce myself to people so they know who I am and what I represent and what I'm capable of. That was my objective. It wasn't to make money and as I'm in this community, I'm making connections, I'm meeting people, and then I'm just noticing a lack of people. I see the name genetics a lot on everybody's name, but as I'm living in this community and as I'm experiencing this community, I'm not seeing the skills, especially for you to call yourself a geneticist, and your only job is to breed this is easy. So why is everybody here just a pollen chucker? Why is everybody only putting male versus female and making a baby? That was confusing to me. And I realized, like, wow, it's a lot of this around here, to the point where I went to search to find a real breeder, like somebody who was knowledgeable, that came from this plant world. And I had to travel. Well, I didn't travel there, but Spain is where I found the person. Spain. My brother Aladdin from Khalifa Genetics, he was the closest I could find when it came to somebody truly understanding the science of selective breeding and being able to apply it to that plant. You understand? I don't care if you learned it there or you learned it here. Understanding breeding, you understand that it's all the same. It's all connected. It's all the same. So when you notice, when I teach breeding, man, I teach my guys straight breeding. I don't teach no topic in particular. We bounce from here to there. Wherever the information leads us is where, whether it's plants, animals, it don't matter. We need to understand it all on an entire basis. So, and that is what I did not see. So, I also, I mean, it makes sense, right? This is an federally illegal market, right? So there is no education money being spent on education. So it started to make sense. So, for me, education became the main priority. I said, you know what? If I really want to help this game right here, want to help this community, then it's going to be through education. I'm going to start a team, and I'm going to educate them, and I'm going to teach them all of the secrets to the real breeding that nobody around here seems to know or care about. And the consumer doesn't know enough to even hold them accountable. So it was just a bad situation overall, or it is, right? I didn't fix it yet, right? So when it became my obligation, and I got people started to hate me. People started to try to blackball me and cut me out and tell me to shut up and stop teaching. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, it's that bad. So the more I enlighten and educate, the more it exposes you for your lack of knowledge thereof. So now I'm the bad guy for being the good guy, right? So, but ultimately I'm a true breeder, right? This is my mission. I didn't come here to make money or sell seeds or anything, right? I came here to improve the state of the genetics in the community, improve And I can't do that single-handedly, so I created this team where I have guys that I'm teaching directly how to really do this, because I'm not a plant breeder. I'm a real breeder. I'm an animal breeder. I'm a plant breeder. I'm a people breeder, right? Shout out to my beautiful daughter, right? But that's it, man. And I felt obligated to stay in this game, even at times when I was discouraged, when people tried to, you'll see it, man. You'll see the hate, and but it really does motivate me, and it really does remind me that we're doing something good, and we're doing something right, and it's never about money, and it's always about each one teach one, and one day this community will be filled with good breeders that you can rely on, that you can ask educated questions, that you can say, hey, man, I just want to ask you a good educated question about the genetics that you got. And they're going to answer you, and they're going to point you in the right direction. And that's what was important to me. And no matter if it takes 5 years, 10 years from now, just know that that's why I'm here. I'm not here for no other reason. But besides to make sure that my guys know this stuff like the back of their hands, so that, they can do what they love. Because I don't love growing, man. I'm not. Let me tell you something about this thing called breeding, man. I even breeding dogs. When you breed dogs and you got 12 little beautiful cute puppies, they are cute. They're cute, right? But you don't keep them dogs. Them dogs at about 6 weeks, bye-bye. Because you know what happens if I keep all of them dogs and I got a house full of grown dogs running around eating, using the bathroom, need to be trained? It don't work like that. That's not how breeding works. So no, I'm not a grower. I'm not collecting plants around my house. No, it's not what I do. And I don't care about all of that. It's not my thing. I care about preserving its genetics and making sure that the guys who do love that plant with all their heart got the best to offer, the best that's available, and it's readily available for them. That's what's important to me, for generations and generations to come, and at a good, affordable rate, not $5,000 a pack and $1,000 and two. Come on, man. You selling this stuff for $2,000, but don't even know how to create it, but pollen chucked it, but couldn't spell heterozygosity. The only word you know is phenotype. I went on a pheno hunt. And I ain't hating. Look, the next video you're going to see is about language and how important it is. Language that you should avoid, hopefully, because most of this language is interchangeable as well. But there is language you should avoid, and there's language that you should lean toward when we think in terms of the breeding world. And we'll break that down in the next video. You'll understand why. So this was Story Time with ZAZA, man. I hope I ain't put y'all to sleep. You dig? We're going to see, man. Let me know in the comments, man. We'll do another story time. But we're going to mix it up, man, because we all about each one teach one. We all about education. And I'm doing this YouTube video and the rest of them YouTube videos and this YouTube channel strictly because I know it's people out there who need to know this knowledge, who do care about the genetics and want to see the state of this community improve, man. So these videos are for you, man. If you want to be the best breeder there is 5-10 years from now, this is why I do it, man. I do it for all my guys. I do it for Team ZAZA, and I do it for those who love the game, man. Shout out to y'all, man. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, join that giveaway. Visit acinfinity.com. Y'all know all the rules, man.
Yeah, I gotta keep it trendy on my soul. I'm the most selfish person that I know. Here we go down